Welcome to Serenity Path, the channel where we embark on a profound journey into the heart of life's most important truths. Have you ever felt like time is slipping away from you? Or wondered what truly matters as the years go by? You're not alone. In today's video, we explore the illusion of time, how we rush through life, only to realize that time itself is not as simple as we think. What if I told you that the key to finding peace, fulfillment, and purpose doesn't lie in chasing after more, but in living fully within each moment? In this video, we'll dive deep into Buddhist wisdom, share powerful real-life stories, and reflect on how to make each second count. So, if you're ready to awaken to a deeper understanding of life, to live with intention, and to embrace the present, stick around. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single second. Be sure to watch the entire video to unlock the full insights that will change the way you perceive time and relationships forever. And if you're ready to start living more mindfully, hit that subscribe button, because Serenity Path is your guide to living with purpose and presence, each and every day. 1. The illusion of time. As we move through life, we find ourselves caught in the ever-present rush of time. Each day, we wake up, hurriedly check off tasks, and move on to the next. Yet, if we pause and truly observe, we may begin to realize something profound, that the passage of time is not as straightforward as it seems. In our youth, a single summer feels like a lifetime, each day stretched wide and slow like golden sunlight spilling across the floor. We remember the laughter, the warmth, and the sense that time had no end. But as we grow older, that sense begins to fade. The months blur into seasons, and the years slip away unnoticed. Time begins to feel like an abstract concept, something that exists outside of ourselves, yet it moves relentlessly forward, always just out of reach. I recall a conversation with an elderly woman named Clara, who shared with me a sentiment that many of us can relate to. At 78, she looked back on her life and confessed, "I don't remember most of my life, not because I didn't live it, but because I wasn't really there." She had raised 4 children, volunteered in her community, and had seen the world, yet the richness of those years escaped her. The realization came to her not with regret, but with a gentle sorrow, a sorrow that many of us may feel as we reflect on how quickly time passes. This brings us to a central teaching in Buddhism, the impermanence of all things. The Buddha often spoke about the transient nature of life, emphasizing that nothing lasts forever. However, what many fail to recognize is that this impermanence is not just about the passing of days or the fleeting nature of youth. It is also about our perception of time itself, which is shaped by the restless mind. We have all heard the saying, "Time flies when you're having fun," yet the reverse is also true. Time seems to drag when we are bogged down by routine, when we are simply going through the motions of life. The more awake we are to the present moment, the fuller our experience of time becomes. But when we are distracted, whether by work, technology, or endless distractions, time seems to slip through our fingers like water through cupped hands. In the Buddha's teachings, the mind plays a critical role in shaping our experience of time. Time, as we know it, is not a fixed entity but a feeling, a sensation deeply tied to our awareness. The more we focus on the present, the longer and richer each moment feels. Conversely, when we let our minds wander, when we lose ourselves in the hustle and bustle of life, time accelerates, slipping past us unnoticed. I remember meeting a man named Samuel, who at the age of 92, still radiated a quiet wisdom. During a retreat, he shared something that stuck with me: the secret of life is not in trying to escape time, but in learning how to be present within it. He had lived through 2 world wars, raised children, and witnessed countless changes in the world. Yet, in his later years, he discovered that the greatest gift he could give himself was not more time, but more presence within the time he had left. In this way, he had learned to make peace with time, not by fighting it, but by living fully within each moment. The Buddha, too, warned against our tendency to chase after time, to try and control it. He once said, "The trouble is you think you have time." This simple, yet profound statement is a call to awaken from our delusion. Time is not something we possess. It is something we experience, and it is always in motion, moving forward without hesitation. The illusion of time arises when we forget to live in the present, when we spend too much time looking back or looking ahead, while the richness of the moment slips away. We tell ourselves, "I will start living when I have more time," or, "Someday, I'll slow down." But as we know, someday is a dangerous word. It promises comfort while silently stealing our most precious resource, this moment. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate awareness of time is through mindfulness. In each moment, we have the opportunity to return to ourselves, to pause, breathe, and recognize the fleeting nature of time. This practice of being present, of truly inhabiting each moment, allows us to connect with the deeper rhythms of life, where time becomes an ally, not an enemy. I once met a retired monk, an elder in his 80s, who had spent most of his life in quiet meditation and reflection. He told me something that stuck with me: "When I was young, I chased after time. Now, in my old age, I realized time was always still. It was I who was running." There was no regret in his voice, but rather a sense of deep reverence. He had come to understand that the richness of life is not found in the number of years we live, but in the depth of our presence within those years. This gentle wisdom invites us to live slowly, to let go of the rush that so often defines our lives. The illusion of time is not that it moves too quickly, but that we believe we are powerless to slow it down. Yet, through mindfulness, we can touch eternity in a single breath. Each breath, each step, becomes an opportunity to awaken to the present moment. As we grow older, it becomes even more crucial to cultivate this awareness. We cannot control time, but we can control how we relate to it. We can choose to live each moment with mindfulness, to notice the small joys, the fleeting beauty, and the profound stillness that is always available to us, even in the midst of our busy lives. So, the next time you find yourself rushing through the day, take a moment to stop, breathe, and reflect. Notice the sound of your breath, the sensation of your feet on the ground, and the quiet hum of life around you. In that moment, time will slow, and you will remember that life is not something to chase, it is something to be fully present for, right here, right now. The Buddha's teachings remind us that every moment is precious. The key is not in trying to grasp time, but in learning to be fully awake within it. As we embrace the impermanence of life, we open ourselves to the richness that comes from simply being present. Time is not the enemy, it is the gift that we are entrusted with, and it is in this awareness that we find true peace. 2. What truly matters. As we move through the seasons of our lives, there comes a moment, a quiet realization, that what once felt so important may not have mattered as much as we thought. The hustle, the urgency, the constant striving, it all begins to lose its grip as we grow older, and we start to question the value of all we have done. This question often arrives not with a loud bang, but with the subtle, almost imperceptible shift that occurs when we no longer measure our worth by what we achieve, but by how we live, who we love, and how present we are in the lives of others. The Buddha taught that attachment to things, whether possessions, status, or accomplishments, leads to suffering. We cling to the belief that more is better, that if we only accomplish more, acquire more, or gain more recognition, we will find true fulfillment. But this attachment to external achievements and material success can blind us to the deeper, more meaningful aspects of life. We convince ourselves that success is measured by how much we do, but the truth is, success is measured by how deeply we live. I remember meeting Helen, a retired nurse who had spent decades caring for the dying, sitting with families in their last moments, comforting both the sick and the grieving. At 72, she had chosen to volunteer at a hospice, not because it was something she felt she should do, but because she had come to understand something deeply important, that there are lessons at the edge of life that the busy world does not teach. She once shared with me, in all my years of sitting beside the dying, no one ever asked for more meetings, more emails, or more work. They asked for people, for peace, for time. Helen's words carry with them the weight of lived experience. In the end, the things we accumulate, the paychecks, the accolades, the endless tasks we tick off, rarely appear on our deathbeds as the things we cherish most. What matters most are the moments we shared with loved ones, the time we spent listening to someone's heart, the quiet conversations, the tender acts of kindness, the moments when we simply show up for others. These are the things that linger, the things we wish we had more of when time is running short. When I reflect on my own life, I realize how easily we fall into the trap of equating busyness with purpose. How often do we spend entire days consumed by tasks that seem urgent, only to find that they are not truly meaningful? How often do we tell ourselves, "I'll slow down someday," only to realize that someday never comes? This is where the Buddhist teaching on right view comes into play. It is the ability to see through the fog of delusion and understand what truly matters. And what truly matters, the Buddha teaches, is not the number of tasks we complete, but the quality of the moments we experience. It is easy to get caught in the web of doing. Our society teaches us that our value lies in what we achieve. We measure our worth by how productive we are, how much we can accumulate, and how much we can accomplish in a day. But as we grow older, this mindset begins to crack. The real question becomes, how have we lived? Who have we loved? Have we been present with the people who matter most? Have we taken the time to truly experience life, to slow down and breathe, to savor the simple joys that are right in front of us? I once heard a Zen master say, "A day without reflection is like a meal without salt." Reflection, the act of pausing to consider the meaning behind our actions and the moments we've experienced, is what transforms our lives. It turns ordinary days into profound memories. It's the practice of slowing down, of sitting with ourselves and asking, what truly matters today? This practice of reflection, whether through journaling, meditation, or simply pausing to breathe deeply, is what brings clarity to our lives. It helps us see what we've been chasing all along, and more importantly, it helps us see what we should have been embracing instead. As I have gotten older, I have started to appreciate how fleeting life is and how precious each moment truly is. I have seen so many people, myself included, lose sight of what matters most in the chase for more. I've watched people work themselves to exhaustion, thinking they were doing it all for their family, only to realize too late that their family just wanted them, present. Not constantly on the phone or caught up in a work project, but here, now, with them. The true gift we can give to the ones we love is not a bigger house, not a fatter paycheck, but our attention, our presence. I met a man named Roy once, who shared a story about his brother. He hadn't spoken to him in over 30 years. Their bond was broken due to a misunderstanding, a fight that was long forgotten in detail, but not in feeling. Roy shared with me how, even though they were estranged, he thought about his brother every single day. He had written him letters, but never sent them. He could never bring himself to reach out. There, in that moment, I saw the heaviness of unspoken words, of a relationship left unresolved. In Buddhism, there is a practice known as the 5 recollections, a way to remind ourselves of the impermanence of life. One of these recollections is, I am subject to aging. There is no way to escape it. I am subject to death. There is no way to avoid it. All that is dear to me will become separated from me. These recollections are not meant to depress us, but to wake us up. They are a call to see life for what it truly is, precious, fleeting, and full of moments that we can never get back once they have passed. This, perhaps, is the most profound teaching, that not everything that demands our attention deserves it. We must become discerning in what we give our time to, especially as we grow older. It is easy to confuse being busy with being purposeful, but the two are not the same. The real value of life lies in the quality of our moments, not the quantity of tasks we check off. It is in the quiet moments with those we love, in the stillness where we can hear our own hearts beating, and in the tenderness we offer to those around us. So, as we reflect on what truly matters, let us ask ourselves this: what is it that we are really seeking? Is it more success, more things, more recognition? Or is it something simpler, something quieter, like a peaceful heart, a loving family, and the ability to be present in each moment? Let us remember that what truly matters is not the length of our days, but the depth of our presence within them. The Buddha teaches us that peace is not found in the striving, but in the stillness, in the acceptance, and in the deep, profound awareness that comes when we truly live, moment by moment, breath by breath. 3. Relationships as sacred grounds. There is something profoundly quiet that fills the air when someone over 70 speaks of old friendships. It's not the noisy chatter of youth that fills the space with energy, but a soft, reverent hush that settles like a blanket over the room. The words are few, often tinged with longing, as if the very act of speaking about these relationships is a sacred offering. "We lost touch," they might say. "I wonder how they're doing these days." And sometimes, in the stillness between their words, a gentle sigh escapes, one that speaks volumes more than any of their carefully chosen phrases: "I wish I had said more before it was too late." This quiet sorrow is not an uncommon feeling, especially as we grow older. We begin to realize that the relationships we have, those bonds of love, friendship, and family, are not just connections that we maintain or disregard at will. They are sacred fields where our karma unfolds, where each gesture, no matter how small, can leave an imprint, either of peace or of pain. In Buddhism, we are reminded that every interaction is a seed. A kind word, a smile, a shared moment, they are the seeds we plant, and they grow in ways that we may never fully understand. I once met a man named Roy, who was in his mid-80s, soft-spoken and gentle, yet burdened by something he couldn't quite let go of. He had a brother, a sibling with whom he had been estranged for over 30 years. The rift between them was born of something trivial, an argument long since forgotten in detail but never in feeling. They had parted ways, and that separation, though outwardly small, had shaped Roy's heart in ways he didn't realize until much later. Roy shared with me, his voice trembling with emotion, that he had written letters to his brother over the years, pouring his heart into each one, only to leave them unsent. "I've written to him," he said, "but I never had the courage to send them." And in that moment, I realized that the weight of unspoken words, the weight of unresolved relationships, can remain with us, unseen but heavy, like an anchor that holds us back from moving forward. Buddhism teaches that hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This teaching holds true not only for our enemies but for the people we love. When we harbor resentment or refuse to forgive, we bind ourselves to the past. The Buddha emphasized the importance of right speech, speaking with kindness and compassion, not just in what we say but in how we choose to hold our relationships. But forgiveness, like all things in life, is not simple. It takes time, patience, and a willingness to step beyond our pride, to recognize that the true weight of our relationships is not in the hurt we carry, but in the love we can offer, even in silence. Roy's story is a testament to the fact that it's never too late to mend a broken relationship, but it requires courage, the courage to face the unresolved. I remember another conversation, this time with an elderly woman named Margaret, who had spent much of her life caring for her family. She had been the anchor in her home, providing unconditional love and support to everyone around her. But now, as she sat in her favorite chair by the window, watching the seasons change, she confessed to me, "There are times when I look back and wonder, did I give enough to those I loved? Did I show them how much they meant to me? Or did I take them for granted?" This question, though simple, touches on a fundamental aspect of our human experience, the need to feel seen, heard, and loved. We all crave connection. And as we grow older, the value of those connections becomes clearer. True intimacy, the kind that doesn't require words but simply the presence of another, becomes more important than ever. It's in those quiet moments, when we're not trying to prove ourselves or chase after something, that we experience the deepest connections. Buddhism reminds us that relationships are not mere transactions but sacred exchanges where the soul touches another, where we see each other beyond the roles we play. A dear friend of mine once shared a story that perfectly encapsulates this. She had spent many years in a strained relationship with her mother, filled with unresolved tension and unspoken words. As her mother grew older, my friend felt the pull to repair their bond, but she was unsure where to start. It wasn't until she had a quiet moment with her mother, sitting together in the garden one afternoon, that she realized the simple power of presence. No grand apology, no dramatic confessions, just the two of them, sitting in silence, allowing their hearts to speak without words. In that moment, my friend knew that she had given her mother the most precious gift, her time, her attention, her full presence. This is what Buddhism teaches us: relationships are sacred fields, not to be taken lightly. The Buddha spoke of right intention, the idea that our actions should be driven by love, not by obligation. When we show up for others, not because we should, but because we want to, because we genuinely care, we create a space where healing can begin. Relationships, whether they are with family, friends, or even strangers, are not just social connections, they are opportunities for spiritual growth. As we grow older, it's easy to think that we have less time to repair relationships or to build new ones. We may feel that the wounds of the past are too deep to heal, or that the opportunity for reconciliation has passed. But the Buddha's teachings are clear: it is never too late to practice love, forgiveness, and compassion. Each day is a new opportunity to plant seeds of kindness, to reach out, to heal, and to be present with those we love. In our relationships, we must recognize that each word spoken, each gesture made, carries weight. And in the same way, every silence, every moment of neglect, creates ripples that may continue for years. But we also have the power to change the course of those ripples, to heal, to forgive, and to start anew. It's the simple acts of kindness, the genuine care, and the loving presence that form the foundation of true relationships. So, as we reflect on our own relationships, let us ask ourselves, are we truly present? Are we offering our love without expectation, without needing anything in return? Are we choosing to heal and forgive, to let go of the past and embrace the present? Let us remember that relationships are sacred grounds, where our karma unfolds and where we have the opportunity to plant seeds of peace, love, and compassion, now and always. 4. Inner work and purpose in later years. As we grow older, there comes a point, sometimes subtle, sometimes loud, when the structure of our lives begins to dissolve. The rush of daily work, the endless tasks that once demanded our time, seem to slow down. No more early morning alarms, no more meetings to attend, no more deadlines hanging over our heads. At first, there is relief, a sweet release from the demands of the world. We can sleep in, travel, relax, and indulge in the leisure that once seemed so far away. But as the days pass, something begins to shift, a quiet question emerges from the stillness: now what? This question, simple yet profound, is one that many of us will face in the later stages of life. It is not a question of survival, not a question of managing day-to-day tasks, but rather a question of meaning, a search for purpose that feels more essential than ever. We find ourselves asking, what is my purpose now? It is a question that does not arise from a sense of urgency or external pressure, but from the quiet, deeper spaces within our hearts that long for more than just the empty motions of living. I met Richard, a retired architect, at a gathering for older adults looking to share their life stories and experiences. Richard had spent over 40 years designing buildings that would outlast him: hospitals, schools, and civic centers. He was meticulous, driven, and widely respected in his field. But at the age of 67, after retiring, Richard told me something that caught me off guard. "I don't know who I am when I'm not building something," he said, his voice not sad but simply uncertain. Richard wasn't lost in a deep sense of despair. He wasn't depressed, but he was untethered. All his life, he had identified himself through his work, the designs he created, the buildings he shaped. But now, in retirement, he found himself in a space of quiet emptiness. "I don't miss the work," he said, "I miss the purpose, the sense that I was contributing, that I was creating something that would last." His words resonate deeply with the core Buddhist teachings on sankhara, or the formations of the mind. These mental formations shape our desires, our habits, and our very sense of identity. Often, we form attachments to these mental patterns, believing that our worth is tied to what we do, to what we achieve. Purpose becomes something that is defined externally, by the roles we play in society: worker, parent, provider. But when those roles dissolve, when the structure of work fades away, we can feel lost, as if the very essence of who we are has evaporated. In Buddhism, the notion of right livelihood is not just about earning a living, it's about living in harmony with our values, regardless of our age or position in society. As we move into our later years, our purpose might not look like it once did. We may not be building physical structures, but we are still shaping the world with our presence, with our wisdom, and with the choices we make. The Buddha's teachings remind us that Dharma, or our true calling, can manifest in many ways, some small, some grand, but all of them carry the potential to offer meaning and connection. For many people, retirement can feel like a door closing, but it's actually an opportunity for a new kind of inner work. It's a chance to reflect on who we are without the external labels and to explore what lies within us. What do we still have to give? What are we passionate about now, in this quieter phase of life? This is the time when we can turn inward, not to search for an external purpose, but to reconnect with the deeper layers of our being. It is not about doing more, but about being more present, more connected, more aware of the simple beauty of each moment. I remember a conversation I had with a retired school teacher, an elderly woman named Grace, who had spent much of her life in the classroom. After she retired, she found herself at a crossroads. "I used to teach," she said, "and that gave my life meaning. But now, I don't know what to do with my time. It's like I'm floating." At first, Grace struggled with this transition. But over time, she began to realize that her purpose was not just tied to the act of teaching, it was tied to the way she showed up for others, the way she listened, cared, and shared her knowledge. Grace started volunteering at a local library, reading aloud to children, just as she had once read to her own students. She didn't have to be an expert or a formal teacher anymore, she simply needed to be present. In those moments, she discovered a new kind of fulfillment, one that came not from the pressure of work, but from the quiet, unhurried presence that flowed naturally from her heart. In Buddhism, there is a deep teaching that life is a form of continuous cultivation. As we age, we may feel that the work we once did is done, but the truth is, our inner work is never finished. Each phase of life brings with it new opportunities to deepen our understanding, to grow, and to evolve. Inner work is not about achieving a goal, it is about continual self-awareness, learning, and adaptation. It is about discovering who we are in the present moment and how we can contribute meaningfully to the world around us. I often think of the Buddhist practice of meditation, particularly vipassana, or insight meditation. It's a practice that encourages us to look deeply into our own minds and see what is truly there, beyond the surface noise. As we get older, meditation becomes a tool not just for calming the mind but for helping us navigate this next phase of life with clarity. What we find in our hearts, the hidden desires, the unresolved emotions, the wisdom accumulated over the years, can be a source of guidance in finding purpose even when external markers of success are no longer relevant. I once met a retired engineer named Sam, who after years of building machines, started spending his days writing poems. At first, he thought it was a hobby, something to fill the time, but soon he began to realize that it was more than that. Writing these poems, he said, feels like something I was meant to do all along. I never had time for it before. But now, it feels like I'm finally doing what my soul has always wanted to express. Purpose, in the later years, often shifts from doing to being. It becomes less about achievement and more about expression. It becomes less about the goals we set and more about the life we embody. Each interaction, each smile, each small gesture of kindness becomes an expression of our inner purpose, a purpose that is not determined by what we do, but by who we are in this moment. So, as we age, we must ask ourselves, what is the work we are being called to do now? It may not be the same work we once did, but it is just as vital. It may be the work of listening deeply to someone who is struggling, of volunteering our time, or of simply being present with those we love. The purpose of this stage of life is to cultivate inner peace, wisdom, and connection, to realize that our worth is not tied to what we accomplish but to the depth of our presence, the love we give, and the peace we create within ourselves and the world around us. In the end, inner work and purpose are not separate from each other. The work we do in this life is an extension of the inner transformation we undergo as we grow older. This is the time when we can move beyond the external measures of success and dive into the richness of being, a being that is not defined by what we do, but by how we show up, how we love, and how we live with awareness and gratitude. 5. Health, energy, and compassion for the body. As the years pass, our bodies begin to change. Once, we moved through life with ease, our muscles strong, our joints limber, our bodies capable of doing whatever we asked of them. But with age, there comes a quiet shift. The knees begin to creak a little louder in the morning, the back hums with gentle reminders, and even a simple walk can become a meditation in patience. The body, once so obedient, now asks for more care, more understanding, more compassion. It is tempting, in a society that values productivity and strength, to see the aging body as a failure, a betrayal of everything we once took for granted. We mourn the loss of our youth, our vigor, and we fight the inevitable decline that comes with age. Yet, in the teachings of Buddhism, we are reminded that the body is not an obstacle on the path, but the very foundation of mindfulness. The Buddha taught that we should treat the body with respect, as the vessel through which we experience this life. It is a temple, fragile and temporary, but sacred all the same. I remember meeting Grace, a woman in her 70s who had lived a life of incredible independence. She had hiked mountains, taught yoga, and danced with a passion that left everyone around her in awe. But after a hip surgery, Grace found herself in a new kind of struggle. I felt betrayed, she told me. As if my body had decided to move on without telling me. Yet, over the course of the retreat, something extraordinary happened. Grace began to reframe her relationship with her body. Rather than seeing it as a burden, she started to treat it with compassion. With each step, each breath, each stretch, she was learning to listen, not to fight the changes but to embrace them. I thought I needed to get strong again, she said, tears in her eyes. But maybe what I really needed was to get kind. In Buddhism, there is a practice known as vipassana, or insight meditation, which encourages us to watch our body without judgment. It asks us to be present with what is, rather than clinging to what once was. We are invited to listen to our bodies, not with frustration, but with love and awareness. The wrinkles, the aches, the forgotten names, they are not signs of failure, they are signs of impermanence. The body teaches us about the fleeting nature of life, and when we learn to listen to it, we begin to understand not just the fragility of the body, but the preciousness of life itself. I often reflect on how, in the earlier years of our lives, we tend to ignore the body. We push through fatigue, disregard pain, and continue moving as if we are invincible. It is only later, when the body slows down, that we realize how much we neglected it. Yet, rather than seeing this as a loss, we are presented with an opportunity, a chance to reconnect with the body in a new, more gentle way. The Buddha's teachings on the body remind us that it is not our enemy, it is our ally. The body is not something to be conquered or fought against but something to be cared for and nurtured. It is the vessel through which we experience the world, and in that sense, it is as sacred as the mind. The body is a mirror of our inner state, a reflection of our mental and emotional health. When we treat our bodies with compassion, we invite a deeper sense of peace and harmony into our lives. One of the most powerful teachings in Buddhism is that health is not just physical but encompasses mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. In our culture, we often separate the body from the mind, but Buddhism reminds us that they are deeply interconnected. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to listen to the body, not just to what it needs in terms of physical care, but to what it is saying about our emotions, our thoughts, and our state of being. I met a man named Elias during a meditation retreat. At 73, he had retired early to enjoy his golden years with his wife, but after she passed unexpectedly, he found himself disoriented. "I have time," he said one afternoon, "but I don't seem to have the will to do anything with it. I just feel tired." He wasn't sick, nor was he depressed. He was simply exhausted from a lifetime of giving without replenishing himself, of putting others first without taking the time to care for his own soul. Through his meditation practice, Elias began to reconnect with his body. He began to notice the subtle ways it was asking for rest, for gentleness, for stillness. Slowly, he learned that rest is not laziness, it is a sacred practice. It is a form of self-love, an opportunity to restore energy so that we can meet life with a clear mind and a full heart. Rest, when done mindfully, becomes an act of spiritual replenishment, a chance to return to ourselves, to care for the body as we would a beloved friend. In Buddhist practice, there is a concept called mindful movement, which includes everything from sitting meditation to walking meditation to simple daily activities like folding clothes or preparing food. It is the practice of bringing full awareness to the body, feeling each step, each movement, each breath, with complete presence. The body, in this sense, becomes a gateway to mindfulness, and through it, we come to understand our deeper connection to life itself. A dear friend of mine once said, "The body is our first teacher." It teaches us impermanence every day. As we age, the body begins to show us the truth of what the Buddha taught, that everything is impermanent. The body's wrinkles, its aches, its changes, these are all reminders that life is constantly shifting. But rather than seeing these changes as a loss, we are invited to see them as a part of the natural flow of life. Each change, each shift, is an opportunity to practice letting go, to release the attachment to youth, to strength, to perfection, and to embrace the wisdom that comes with age. The practice of compassionate care for the body is not just about maintaining physical health, it is about learning to live with grace, to accept what is, and to cherish the body for the incredible vessel it is. It is about taking the time to nurture our physical selves, to honor the quiet whispers of the body, and to listen with kindness to its needs. The greatest act of spiritual courage, especially in the later years of life, is learning to love the body exactly as it is, impermanent, fragile, and beautiful in its own right. The wrinkles are not marks of decline, they are the traces of a life well lived, of a body that has carried us through the challenges, the joys, and the lessons of life. The slower movements, the aching joints, these are not signs of defeat, but signs of endurance, of wisdom, and of the quiet strength that grows with age. As you move through the later years of life, I invite you to think of your body not as a machine that is breaking down, but as a wise and patient teacher. Take the time to care for it with love, with mindfulness, and with gratitude. Embrace the changes, listen to the body's needs, and offer it the same compassion you would offer to a dear friend. In doing so, you will not only nurture your physical health but your spiritual well-being as well. 6. Learning and sharing wisdom. There is a quiet misconception that runs through our culture, that learning is something meant for the young. As children, we are taught to strive for knowledge, to gather as much as we can, to achieve academic success, and to reach milestones. Yet, as we grow older, the idea of learning somehow begins to fade. We are no longer expected to chase after degrees or career goals, as if the journey of wisdom stops at a certain age. But the truth, as I have come to understand it, is that the deepest learning begins only when the pressure to achieve fades, and what remains is the purest form of curiosity, an inquiry that flows freely without the need for an endpoint. In Buddhism, there is a concept known as prajna, or wisdom. This wisdom is not a theoretical knowledge gained from books or lectures. It is the kind of deep understanding that is born from life itself, from experience, from the trials and triumphs we endure. Wisdom is carved into the heart by the raw beauty and the messiness of human existence, by the heartbreaks, the joys, the quiet moments of reflection, and the lessons we learn as we walk the path of life. One of the most poignant moments of my life was when I met Samuel, a 92-year-old lay practitioner who had spent decades studying Buddhist texts. Samuel was not a scholar in the traditional sense. He hadn't attended prestigious universities or been trained in academic circles, but his knowledge of the Dharma, of life, was profound. During a Dharma talk in a small room in New Mexico, Samuel began by asking the group, "What are you learning these days?" At first, his question seemed simple, almost rhetorical. But as he repeated it with gentleness, there was a weight behind it. "I'm serious," he said. "What are you still learning?" The room grew silent, each of us unsure of how to answer. But Samuel continued, smiling as he shared his own answer, "I'm learning how to be gentle with my fear of forgetting names." At first, we chuckled. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how deeply his words resonated. Samuel was not concerned with grand ideas, complicated philosophies, or impressing anyone with his wisdom. Instead, he was focusing on the simple act of learning to be human, of understanding his own vulnerabilities, his own fears, and embracing them with gentleness and compassion. Samuel's approach to learning wasn't about acquiring new facts or skills, it was about learning how to live more deeply, with awareness. This is the kind of wisdom that comes not from books, but from being fully present in the flow of life, from accepting the imperfections and limitations that we all face. This is the wisdom that age grants us, not the ability to know everything, but the capacity to learn from everything. I've met many people in their later years who, like Samuel, have embraced this new approach to learning. They no longer feel the need to prove their intellect or achieve some external validation. Instead, they focus on the quality of their presence, on the depth of their understanding, and on the ways they can share what they've learned with others. Take, for example, a retired teacher named Linda. At 76, Linda wasn't formally certified in anything, nor did she hold an advanced degree. But she had spent over 2 decades practicing mindfulness each morning, and she had a deep reservoir of experience and insight. Seeing the suffering of her community, anxiety, grief, loneliness, she decided to start teaching meditation at a local senior center. "I'm not here to fix anyone," she said with a humble smile. "I'm just sharing what helped me breathe again." Linda's teaching wasn't about being an expert. It wasn't about telling people how to live their lives or fixing their problems. It was about sharing the wisdom she had acquired through years of daily practice, offering a hand to those who were still struggling to find peace. And what was most beautiful about Linda's approach was that it didn't come from a place of authority. Instead, it came from a shared journey, from the understanding that we are all students on this path, and we are all learning together. This, I believe, is the heart of Buddhist wisdom. The Buddha himself was not an infallible teacher, he was a fellow traveler on the path. He encouraged his followers to question, to reflect, to experience life for themselves, and to find their own truths. Wisdom is not something we possess, it is something we cultivate through our experiences, through our mistakes, and through our willingness to be present in the world. As we age, we often find that we are no longer concerned with the pursuit of knowledge for knowledge's sake. We are more interested in sharing what we have learned, in passing on the teachings and wisdom that have shaped us. There is a shift from the desire to accumulate knowledge to the desire to distribute it, because true wisdom, in Buddhism, is not meant to be hoarded. It is meant to be shared. It is meant to be offered freely to others, without expectation or attachment. But even as we share our wisdom, we must remember that we are still learning. To be a teacher is not to claim expertise, but to remain open to new insights, new perspectives, and new understandings. We are all, in some way, still students of life. The most profound wisdom often comes not from the answers we give, but from the questions we ask, from the willingness to remain curious and humble. I remember a moment with a woman named Evelyn, a retired nurse who spent much of her life caring for others. One day, she shared with me how she had recently taken up painting in her free time. "I've never been an artist," she said with a laugh, "but I wanted to try something new. I wanted to learn how to see the world differently." And as we sat together in her living room, looking at her paintings, simple, yet full of heart, I realized that Evelyn was teaching me something far deeper than any medical knowledge she had acquired over the years. She was teaching me the power of creativity to unlock new ways of seeing, of thinking, and of understanding the world. Evelyn's story, like Samuel's, reminds me that learning doesn't stop when we reach a certain age. It only shifts. It becomes less about what we can achieve and more about what we can experience, what we can give, and how we can help others along the way. It is about cultivating a life of continuous discovery, even in the later stages of life. In Buddhist philosophy, the concept of Dharma is central to this understanding. Dharma refers to the teachings of the Buddha, but it also refers to the truth we each carry within ourselves, the wisdom we have earned through our experiences. Our Dharma is not static, it evolves over time, shaped by the choices we make, the lessons we learn, and the ways we share that wisdom with others. So, as we grow older, let us remember that we are never too old to learn, and that the true purpose of learning is to share what we know, not from a place of authority, but from a place of love and humility. We are all students, we are all teachers, and we are all learning together, one breath at a time. As the Buddha said, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Let us think with compassion, with understanding, and with the desire to share the wisdom we have gained, so that we may help illuminate the path for others still walking behind us.